Kim Kardashian's career is hanging by a thread after a surprise U.S. Marshals raid allegedly led to her arrest at her Hidden Hills estate. The high-profile detention is said to be connected to a massive federal investigation into a celebrity narcotics ring that's rocked Hollywood. But stay tuned, because agents also reportedly seized a luxury beauty product line they believe was being used to move illegal substances across state lines. Border Force officers stopped a truck at the port of Harwich in Essex after it arrived on a ferry from the Hook of Holland in the Netherlands. That stop, which looked, on the surface, like a routine border crossing, turned out to be one of the most talked about drug seizures in recent memory. Not because of the cocaine, but because of what was sitting right next to it. The National Crime Agency said Jacob Jan Konkel, 40, was driving a truck, carrying 28 pallets of Skims clothing from the Netherlands when he was stopped by border officials at a port in Essex in September. 28 pallets, a full, legitimate commercial load. The kind of shipment that moves across European borders hundreds of times a day without anyone flinching, but something caught the officers' attention. According to the National Crime Agency, officers used X-ray scanning on the truck and detected irregularities in the trailer's construction. A search revealed a false compartment built into the rear doors, where 90 packages of cocaine were concealed. Each package wasn't sloppy or improvised. The agency said Konkel had stopped on the way to collect 90 kilograms, 98 pounds of cocaine, and that the truck had been specially adapted so that he could hide the drugs, wrapped in 1 kilogram packages, in a compartment of the truck's back doors. Inside the hidden compartment were 90 kilogram sized packages of cocaine, with an estimated street value of about $9.6 million, authorities said. That number, nearly $10 million in cocaine, packed neatly into the rear doors of a truck hauling Kim Kardashian's underwear, is what turned a standard drug bust into an international headline. The driver was Jacob Jan Konkel. The driver, identified as Jacob Jan Konkel, the investigators did not believe him, and for good reason. Before reaching the port, where authorities alleged the drugs were loaded into the truck, a 16-minute gap, an unmarked, unexplained detour that Konkel apparently hoped would vanish into the noise of a long cross-border haul. It didn't. Investigators pointed to data from the vehicle's tachograph. It allegedly showed an unexplained stop during the journey that authorities believe may have been when the cocaine was loaded. Then came the part that sealed it. Konkel, who initially denied knowing anything about the cocaine, eventually confessed he had agreed to transport the drugs for a payment of 4,500 euros. 4,500 euros. For nearly $10 million worth of cocaine, for the kind of risk that ends with 13 years in a British prison. He was sentenced to 13.5 years in prison for drug smuggling at Chelmsford Crown Court. And right there, in the middle of every court filing, every press release, every headline, the name Skims. Viral social media posts claiming Kim Kardashian was arrested after authorities found millions of dollars worth of cocaine hidden in a shipment tied to her Skims clothing brand began circulating immediately. The internet did what the internet does. It took a drug sentencing in a small English crown court and turned it into a career-ending scandal for a woman who was never charged, never arrested, and never even accused of anything by the people who actually investigated the case. The NCA also said that both the exporter and importer connected to the Skims shipment were not involved in the smuggling operation, while Skims and Kardashian have also not been accused of any wrongdoing in the situation. But by then, the story had already taken on a life of its own, and to understand why and why the claim that her career is over became the dominant narrative, you have to understand exactly who Kim Kardashian is and exactly how much she has built. To understand the weight of the headlines that came crashing down in May 2026, you have to sit with just how far Kim Kardashian has come, and just how much she had to lose. One of the most well-recognized names in the world, Kim Kardashian has transformed from a reality TV star into a multi-hyphenate mogul, leveraging a massive digital following to build a business empire valued in the billions. That transformation didn't happen quietly or by accident. It was the product of years of calculated brand building, an obsessive attention to public image, and a series of business moves that, taken together, tell the story of someone who turned fame into something far more permanent. Kardashian began her career as a celebrity stylist and closet organizer, opening the boutique chain Dash in 2007. That same year marked the debut of Keeping Up with the Kardashians, a series that served as the launchpad for her global influence. The show ran for 20 seasons. 20, it didn't just put her in living rooms across America, it built a cultural institution around her family, her life, and ultimately her taste. By the time KUWTK ended, Kim Kardashian wasn't a reality TV personality anymore. She was a platform. The company now known as Skims was co-founded in June 2019 by Kim Kardashian and Swedish entrepreneur Jens Grede. But the origin story is more personal than a corporate founding date suggests. Reflecting on the success of Skims, Kardashian recalled having to cut and dye her own shapewear in the sink, with coffee and tea bags before her product, which offers a range of skin tones, was available. She wasn't solving a theoretical problem, she was solving her own problem, and betting that millions of other people had the same one. She was right. Skims' initial launch resulted in more than $2 million in profit, and the company selling out of merchandise in 10 minutes. The company claims to have sold more than 3 million products in its first year in business. From there, the growth curve became almost unreasonable to track. In April 2021, the company was reported to be worth over $1.6 billion. In January 2022, Skims was reported to be worth $3.2 billion. As of November 2025, the company reached a valuation of $5 billion, outvaluing traditional competitors and expanding into activewear through a landmark partnership with Nike. $5 billion. From a woman who once dyed her own shapewear in a sink, the brand didn't get there by staying still. Since launching in 2019, the shapewear company has ballooned into a multi-billion-dollar brand through partnerships with the NBA, Swarovski, Dolce & Gabbana, Fendi, and the North Face. And it kept expanding. In January 2026, Skims collaborated with Nike on a Spring 2026 collection, which consisted of ballet-inspired designs, new Rift satin footwear, and a campaign featuring Thai rapper and singer Lisa. Meanwhile, Kardashian herself was not simply resting on commercial success. Beyond entertainment and fashion, Kardashian is a prominent activist for criminal justice reform, having passed the baby bar exam in 2021 to further her advocacy. In 2018, she successfully lobbied for the release of an incarcerated woman, Alice Marie Johnson. She sat in meetings at the White House. She studied law. She built a parallel identity as someone using her platform not just to sell products, but to push at something structural. There is an almost unsettling irony then, and the internet didn't miss it, in the fact that Kim Kardashian, who has spent years working inside criminal justice spaces, who has publicly connected with people convicted of drug offenses and fought for their release, suddenly found her brand name splashed across one of the UK's biggest cocaine busts of the year. That irony is exactly what the internet grabbed and ran with. For Skims, the reputational challenge is less about legal exposure and more about public perception. The brand's name appearing beside a major drug seizure can spread quickly online, where details about responsibility are often lost beneath celebrity-focused headlines. And boy, did those headlines spread. The question was, did any of them have a foundation, or was the entire career is over narrative built on something far shakier than it appeared? The man at the center of this story isn't famous. He doesn't have a brand or a TV show or a $5 billion company. He's a 40-year-old truck driver from Katowice, a small city in northern Poland. And the decisions he made on a single journey across Europe landed him at the center of one of the most viral celebrity stories of 2026. Jakub Jan Konkel was, by all available evidence, a low-level courier for a much larger criminal operation. Disposable, replaceable, and paid a fraction of what the drugs he carried were worth. Konkel confessed he had agreed to transport the drugs for a payment of 4,500 euros, roughly $5,243. Just over $5,000, for nearly $10 million worth of cocaine. That ratio tells you everything about how these operations work, and everything about where Konkel sat within it. The operation itself was not improvised. The truck wasn't a random vehicle that someone crammed drugs into at the last second. Investigators said the vehicle had been specially modified to hide the drugs inside the trailer. This was a professional job, the kind of modification that takes time, expertise, and money. Someone higher up in that criminal network had invested seriously in this delivery. Authorities said the truck was carrying 28 pallets of Skims clothing when officers discovered a concealed compartment built into the rear trailer doors. The Skims shipment wasn't an accident. It was, in the language of organized crime logistics, cover. A high-volume, commercially legitimate load that would look unremarkable on any cargo manifest. A name-brand shipment of underwear from the Netherlands is not the kind of thing that raises immediate red flags. Often hidden on entirely legitimate loads, such as this, NCA operations manager Paul Orchard said, "The pattern he's describing is not new, and it's not unique to Skims." Authorities said trafficking groups often hide narcotics inside legitimate commercial shipments to avoid detection. What's new here is the celebrity angle. The fact that the brand name on those 28 pallets happened to belong to one of the most photographed women on the planet. The 16-minute stop is where the prosecution's case really crystallized. Kunkel's driver tracking device caught him in a lie, revealing a 16-minute stop he failed to mention to NCA investigators. Detectives strongly suspect that this window of time was when the hidden cargo was loaded onto his trailer. He didn't report it. When questioned, he omitted it entirely. That omission, combined with the physical evidence of the modified doors and the cocaine itself, made his denial almost impossible to sustain. The court scene, when it came, was not without its human weight. Jacob Jan Konkel appeared in Chelmsford Crown Court in Essex, England, where he was sentenced to 13.5 years for his role in a cocaine smuggling scheme. By that point, the denials were gone. He pleaded guilty. He'd gone from categorically denying any knowledge of the drugs to standing in a Crown Court in Essex, facing more than a decade behind bars for smuggling cocaine in the back of a fashion brand's truck. NCA operations manager Paul Orchard said the investigation removed a significant amount of cocaine, whose profits are lost to the crime group behind the smuggling attempt. And with Konkel, they've lost an important enabler. But here's where the story takes its most important turn. At every single stage of this investigation, from the initial stop to the sentencing hearing, the investigators were explicit. The agency said the shipment of clothing was legitimate, and neither the exporter nor importer were connected to the smuggled load. Not connected, not under suspicion, not being looked at, and Skims had nothing to do with either the doors or the people who modified them. But the public narrative had already taken a very different shape. The sentencing happened on Monday, May 18, 2026. Those images, evidence bags full of branded shapewear stacked up in a police evidence suite, went everywhere immediately. Within hours, the story had moved well past the facts of the case. Viral social media posts claiming Kim Kardashian was arrested after authorities found millions of dollars worth of cocaine hidden in a shipment tied to her Skims clothing brand circulated rapidly, not just shared, engineered. Accounts built entire narratives around an arrest that had never happened, charges that had never been filed, and a U.S. Marshals involvement that existed only in the titles of clickbait videos. According to AP News, investigators did not accuse Kardashian or Skims of wrongdoing, and the viral claims surrounding her arrest are false. But false information, when it carries enough shock value, has a speed advantage over corrections. The image of Kim Kardashian's branded clothing sitting in police evidence bags is viscerally compelling in a way that a press release saying neither the exporter nor importer were connected simply isn't. The reaction on social media split along predictable lines. On one side, memes, jokes, wordplay on the brand name. The cocaine Skims jokes spread rapidly. The shapewear to drugs connection was too visually strange for the internet to resist. On the other side, genuine conspiracy thinking. Online users shared their thoughts on the scandal, with many convinced that Kim Kardashian had full knowledge of the shipment. Comments circulated suggesting this couldn't be a first-time business deal. Posts implied that the story had been buried for months by a media afraid to target a celebrity of Kardashian's stature and commercial power. This latest controversy proved that whenever Kim Kardashian's name becomes attached to a headline, even one involving an international cocaine seizure, the conversation quickly turns into a spectacle far bigger than the actual facts of the case. Skims responded quickly and directly. Skims released a statement saying, "Skims is aware of the recent news involving a shipment with our products. We want to be absolutely clear. Skims had no knowledge whatsoever about this criminal activity. We had no connection to the smuggling operation, the driver, or the truck." That statement went to TMZ, to E! News, to every major outlet. Kim Kardashian's shapewear brand Skims was making it crystal clear. It had absolutely nothing to do with a major cocaine smuggling operation in England, after the company's clothing shipment was tied to a convicted drug trafficker. The denial was clear. The facts behind it were supported by the same law enforcement agency. But denials don't trend. Memes do. There's also a broader layer here that the reaction exposed, one that has nothing specifically to do with Kim Kardashian and everything to do with how the public processes celebrity scandal. There is a deep, persistent appetite for the idea that the ultra-wealthy are hiding something. Kim Kardashian, who built her profile on radical visibility, who has made a career out of letting cameras into nearly every room of her life, still inspires that suspicion in a significant portion of the public. The cocaine story didn't create that suspicion, it just activated it. Those are the stakes that the NCA was focused on, not the celebrity branding. The cocaine that didn't make it to British streets. The internet, of course, had different priorities. This is the question the headline promises an answer to. And now that you have every layer of the story, the bust, the driver, the brand, the reaction, the answer can be examined not as a hot take, but as a conclusion built from the actual facts. Let's start with the legal reality. There's no indication that Kardashian was arrested or involved in the smuggling operation. None. Not from the NCA, not from Border Force, not from the Chelmsford Crown Court, not from any law enforcement agency on either side of the Atlantic. The mention of U.S. Marshals in viral posts and video titles is straightforwardly fabricated. There is no U.S. Marshals involvement in this case, there never was. The investigation was a UK operation, conducted by UK authorities, targeting a Polish truck driver who admitted to working for an overseas criminal network. Kim Kardashian's name appears in none of the official documents as a suspect, a person of interest, or even a witness. Authorities were clear that Skims had absolutely nothing to do with the smuggling operation. Now let's look at the business reality. As of November 2025, Skims reached a valuation of $5 billion, outvaluing traditional competitors and expanding into activewear through a landmark partnership with Nike. That valuation didn't evaporate in May 2026 because a truck driver in Essex got sentenced. As of 2024, Skims generated around $1 billion in net sales. Companies generating $1 billion a year in revenue do not collapse because of a drug bust that explicitly cleared them. In fact, the trajectory was moving in entirely the opposite direction from over. Skims is moving deeper into international retail with plans for a major London flagship store. Even as Kim Kardashian's shapewear company works to distance itself from the high-profile UK cocaine smuggling case, the company is preparing to open its first UK flagship on Regent Street this summer, a 12,000-square-foot location that would give the fast-growing brand one of London's most prominent retail addresses. Let that land for a second. Skims is opening a flagship store on Regent Street, one of the most prestigious retail addresses in the world, in the same city where its brand name just appeared in a major drug sentencing. That is not the behavior of a brand in crisis. That is the behavior of a brand on an expansion trajectory that a viral news cycle cannot meaningfully interrupt. The expansion comes days after a British court sentenced a truck driver to 13.5 years in prison for smuggling cocaine hidden in a vehicle carrying legitimate Skims merchandise, a case authorities said had no connection to the brand or its trading partners. The pattern here is significant. The case illustrates a common risk for global consumer brands. The difference is that when Skims is the brand on the manifest, the story gets 100 million impressions instead of a brief paragraph in a trade publication. Now let's examine the career is over framing with the full picture in view. The claim requires you to believe that Kim Kardashian, who survived a 2007 tape that almost anyone else's career would not have recovered from, who rebuilt herself into a billion-dollar entrepreneur, who launched a company during a pandemic, who passed the bar exam while raising 4 children and running multiple businesses, is going to have her career ended by a drug case in which she was not charged, not arrested, not even named as a person of interest. Kim Kardashian is a reminder that she's the OG influencer, in the way she has leveraged her social media branding over the last decade to become one of the world's most impactful figures, lobbyists, and entrepreneurs. Once most notably known for keeping up with the Kardashians, Kim Kardashian has since expanded her empire, using her large platform to advocate for causes that matter to her, like criminal justice reform. That is the full picture. Not a woman on the edge of collapse, a woman who has, by every available metric, built something that a viral headline cannot undo. What is true is that this story exposed a genuine vulnerability. Skims is entering a new phase while navigating the kind of unwanted news. The company's next challenge is to keep the focus on its retail growth, product strategy, and international expansion, while ensuring the criminal case remains understood for what officials described it to be: a smuggling operation involving a modified truck, not the fashion brand whose goods were inside it. That challenge, managing public perception in an environment where false claims travel faster than corrections, is the real story here. Not an arrest that never happened, not a U.S. Marshals operation that doesn't exist. Not a career ending for a woman who just scored a 12-0 square foot flagship on Regent Street. The verdict is this: all of it entirely disconnected from Kim Kardashian in any legal or operational sense. The truck driver is going to prison. The brand is opening in London, and the career that was supposedly over is, by the evidence, doing just fine. The headline was built on the gap between what sounds explosive and what actually happened. That gap is wide.